Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining our call today. So some of our members told us that they're interested in becoming mentors in the next session of the Informed Mentor Match program. And that begins on April 28th, but they don't yet know what to expect. So we thought it would be a good idea to have some of our current members share their experiences with you. We have a list of questions for today that we'll cover. And if we miss anything that you'd like to know about, please put your questions in the Q&A and we'll get to those later in the call. We should have some time at the end. Also, this call is being recorded, so everyone who registered is going to receive the recording in the next few days. My colleague Jill Capello will send that out. She's probably the one you've been communicating with. I'm just filling in for her today. And now I'm going to go ahead and ask our three panelists to introduce themselves. Jim, let's start with you.
Jim Bookbinder from the University of Waterloo in Canada. I have a mentor named Yuan Yuan, who's at a university near Paris, Business School ESSEC, and she's in the final stages of her PhD.
Good. Shantih, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Shantih Spanton. I'm in industry. Actually, I work for Manhattan Associates on their transportation team, doing trucking transportation routing. I'm on my third mentee now, which is great, and I've really enjoyed that. I've done a few folks looking to transition between either industry into a new industry, academia into industry, or folks that are currently in their PhD program and exploring whether or not academics or industry is right for them. I've actually also worked in the academic setting. I've adjuncted before in the university setting here in the US. So
Great, thank you. Oh, it looks frozen on my end.
Okay, I guess I will be the third.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just go ahead. I'm Hungpo Chao. I'm honored to be part of this panel and grateful to the Informs Mentor Match community for this opportunity. It is a privilege to stand among such distinguished group of colleagues. For those who don't know me, let me just briefly share a bit about my background and how mentorship has shaped my career path. And then also, my experience with this program briefly. Now, my journey started from a graduate studies at Stanford, where I was fortunate to learn from great mentors like Alan Mann, Richard Cotto, George Danzig, Robert Wilson, and Kenneth Arrow. And my experience there has deepened my appreciation for the power of operations research, management science, and economics, particularly in the energy modeling and the market design. And rather than following the traditional academic path, like many others, I joined the Electric Power Research Institute, where I tackled real-world challenges in utility planning, electricity market design, and risk analysis. Along the way, I taught at the Stanford and UC Berkeley, where I firsthand observed the value of blending analytical rigor and pragmatic problem solving. And over time, I traveled internationally following the California crisis. That's a great experience interacting with a very diverse group. And over the past 40 years, I found that these experiences have reinforced my belief that in the importance of mentoring, not just in passing down the knowledge, but in fostering adaptability, critical thinking, and leadership in a very uncertain time. So now this is my third year in joining this program, and I've learned a great deal from others and my mentees, frankly. And I look forward to sharing our insights in this very insightful discussion and learning from my fellow panelists as we explore how best to support and cultivate the next generation of professionals and leaders in our community. Look forward to a great session.
Thank you so much. And thanks to all our panelists for being here today. We really appreciate your time. So I'm just going to jump right into the questions and we'll kind of rotate the order that we answer them. And so I'll call on you. So question number 1, what inspired you to become a mentor with the Informs Mentor Match program? And Shantih, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay. Just so you guys know, we don't have an order or anything. So, all right, let me see. You guys can feel free to jump in and ask other questions too, if needed. But for me, I think mentoring, like Hungpo said, I think mentoring is super important, and I think there's enough research out there as well that shows the importance of career development and the role that mentoring plays in that. So, but I think for me, why I am involved in particular is I remember. I think, the mentoring program we have is usually a lot of the folks in there are in that transition between the PhD and, that first sort of job, time. And I just remember how rough that was, socially, academically, as well as that, just sort of terror, right, that you felt, as you're trying to make those really big decisions that seem so insurmountable at the time. And so, if me being there as just someone to bounce questions off of, or have conversations or talk about their fears, or hey, what is different about a resume for industry versus academics? Like, what are they looking for when you get the job? How will you be graded and ranked? If I can give them, make them feel 10% better, even 5% better and less, sort of stressed during that anxious time, then I would, gladly be able to do that, because I remember, how really hard that was at that time. So just really, really feel like it's a very worthwhile thing to support and help people, and it makes our industry and profession better. You want people to have the support and guidance to, be happy and healthy and successful in their careers and navigate the stressful transitions. So I think that's my answer.
Thanks. Jim, let's jump to you.
I had never been part of this program before, but at the university, of course, we mentor graduate students all the time, and undergraduate students as well, for that matter, in their fourth-year design projects. So I didn't think it would be that different, but I was curious as to what the impact would be of not being able to meet in person with an advisee, and having only to communicate by WhatsApp in our case, but it could be by other means. But we're separated by a big ocean, so the communication aspect was something potentially challenging. I was lucky enough early in my career to be mentored by a civil engineering professor. My PhD wasn't in operations research, and yet I knew I wanted to do something more practical than the equations from applied math and physics and engineering that I was working on in my research at that time. So I through my mentor, I was lucky to learn about OR, learn about transportation, and transpose myself, my abilities to be able to function in that area. And this is a chance in another setting then to do some mentoring on my own.
Thank you. Hungpo, how about you?
Well, I don't really have much to add. I think my experience is really a mix of the two well-articulated experiences. I benefited from great mentors throughout my career, as Jim has said. It is my way of paying forward to make me feel comfortable with what I have learned. And also, I truly enjoy engaging with the bright and motivated young people and help them navigate, this their paths.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next question. Could you each share a success story from your mentoring journey so far? And let's start with Jim this time.
Okay, well, of course, success might be in the eye of the beholder, but I was pleased that that given that my mentee was at the final stages of her PhD, I could help her a bit with the job search, at least in the academic direction. So I had certain suggestions about applying for postdoctoral positions or versus faculty positions, which are harder to get without the postdoctoral experience. And this is what one of the things we talk about each time we have our WhatsApp call.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to Hungpo.
I think, as Shantih said earlier, I think my success, I have three sort of mentees on this program. The success is not really measured by big things. It's really by small incremental, I think, genuine improvements. I think what has left me most satisfying, I think, is one experience that I mentored a fellow who graduated from PhD program, just got a postdoc position. And that was a period, as I sort of learned, it was really very challenging. I was very humbled by learning all about that experience. It was really going from, let's say, from classroom to the real world. I think I worked very closely with him in a way that I could see that he really feel comfortable with positioning him in the transition. He's well on his way to become a young faculty. I think that's a great, let's say, eye-opening experience for me in all these years. So I think that's a new experience for me.
I would say that's successful. Shantih?
Yeah, I think like Jim said that it's really success is really in the eye of the beholder, right? So no, you should ask my mentees and ask for their success points. I think all three of them had I got to see them have big successes. One was still pretty early in her PhD career, and watching her like get ready for those big milestones, passing qualifiers and doing the first research presentation. I actually helped her, do posters and things and format them. Just watching her going through those steps and like really, really fondly like remembering, being in that place, 15, plus years ago myself and getting to see that was, really wonderful. And then the other two folks were transitioning into industry roles, and just watching them gain confidence and really retailoring, their content, their resumes, how they present themselves, talking about, the interview questions, and then having them go through those cycles and then having them come back and say, oh yeah, exactly what you said, that's what happened. And oh yeah, they said, they gave me the same feedback on the resume, that you had given me. And, to just watch them feel like they had felt a little more prepared. I mean, you're never prepared, right? But, just that they could feel a little more confident, and that it wasn't the first time, this is a big chasm between, especially transitioning from academia into the industry world. So just helping them even with those small things and watching them really gain confidence and have interviews. I think we all know the market is really, really tough right now. So, the fact that those folks are getting interviews and they're getting into the face-to-face conversations, I think that's a big success, I think, right now for me. So very, very proud of all of them. So
There's a lot to be said for gaining confidence, I think. Now let's talk a little bit about challenges. So can you share what are some challenges that you may have encountered during this mentoring process and how did you overcome that? And let's start with Hungpo this time.
Okay, that's a tough question, and I do have one experience is that um, it's easy said than done. You know, in mentoring, you start by listening more, listening the mentees and try to be useful and try to address real concerns. Uh, the challenge I face is that once at the beginning I mentored an undergraduate. That's a very highly motivated, a very talented young fellow. And I was amazed how fast he picked up things, and I was all very uh, feel very enthusiastic. But I later what I learned that it can be too good to be true. Sometimes that I learned it too slowly. Let me put it this way, because that was a time when he actually picked up the ChatGPT stuff before it actually became known. He was very smart, and I underestimated the emotional aspect. He was trying so hard to impress the people, and he picked up everything perfectly. And even actually on this program, he was rated as a model mentee. Uh, and I think in retrospect, I wish that I had picked up what he knew at the time better, so that I can match his temperament and his pace. You know, I think it was not all bad, but I feel that it could have been a lot better. I think what is not really desirable actually for a mentee is really try to move too fast. Because I think in this world, in charting through all this uncertainty, I think the emotional aspect is really crucial. And we have a lot of help from other aspects to improve our intelligence. But I think the emotional uh, to get in touch, like in moving from the classroom to the boardroom, I will say that right now, I will advise my younger sort of folks that stay in the kitchen sometimes, not really try to try to impress people too fast. So I discovered all of this until didn't realize that until actually Jill tried to arrange an interview and didn't get a response from him. And so this is how I actually truly learned that nothing was too late, but in retrospect, I could actually have done better if I had learned all what I have known today.
Thank you. That's interesting. Shanti, let's go to you.
Oh, yes, that brought up a lot of things and feelings for me too. I think and I think paying attention to those, the less like prescriptive, this step, let's review their resume, let's talk about their career path, I think making sure we don't miss the step of really paying attention to where they're at, and what they're really feeling. I think you know, a lot of people in those transition phases, and what I like to call it is educational inertia, right? You've been on this path and you're just, moving along this path. But I think it's very important to really talk with them and listen, like what's going on? How do you feel about this? You're talking about transitioning from this area to another. Like, how do you really feel about that? And why do you want to make this change? And what are you anticipating is going to be there, right? Because every way of life and every action we do, every research pathway, there's pros and cons. And making sure that we don't forget that there's a fit for the individual as well, that we're not just chasing those higher things that we view as more valued in society, but really making sure we have a fit, and making sure they're emotionally well supported, like paying, like, hey, do you have, how's your relationship with your, academic advisor? How's your relationship with your current boss? Like it's, and again, we're not therapists, right? I'm not saying we need to do that. We're clearly not trained, to do that, but don't forget how impactful those things are in the career space and in the pieces that touch the topics they're going to be bringing up in the conversations. Um, I don't think that's a challenge. I think that's just a thing to be very aware of. But I would say that the most challenging thing for me has always been, as I'm sure for everyone, scheduling, right? It's very easy to, try to set these times with your person and then have them, punt week after week and get shuffled and moved, as both of you have extremely difficult, challenging schedules. And so just making sure that you both are really committed, to making sure that you keep the time for them. And you're gonna shift eventually, but just really having that constant stream of emails. And we do a lot by emails as well. If they have resumes or something or questions they ask, I just email me. That's fine. I'll respond. So yeah, I think scheduling is the only real logistical challenge.
That's a great point. Jim?
Well, in working with graduate students at my own university, I typically ask for something in writing, even if it's just one page, a day or so ahead of our meeting so that I can be prepared. And in the case of now working with my Informs mentee, we do set the date, and she gives me a choice of what day do I want in a particular week. So that isn't a problem, but I don't necessarily know in advance of a question that this is the question that's going to come up. So I feel like I'm less prepared, but as long as she understands that, I don't think it's a real problem. And there always is the opportunity, as Shantih said, we can follow up by email if we need to. But that I see as one challenge in this arrangement, that what we discuss from one week to the next may not be that related, and I may not know about it until real time.
Adjusting on the fly. Now let's talk about how mentoring has affected your personal and professional growth. I think some of you may have touched on this even in your introduction, but if you could just go back to that and what has that done for you? Shantih, we'll start with you.
Oh gosh. I mean, as far as being mentored myself, I mean, I absolutely think it was essential for getting where I am today. I think was very, very lucky to have some core key people that recognized my desire to do things and were able to, gently put things in place for me to do that. So, and I think, when we all look back on our lives and think about our paths, I think whether or not it's a formal mentoring situation, I think we can all remember, those key sort of one-off pivotal conversations where that one person said, that one thing, right? Like Hungpo mentioned that he had a mentor that introduced him to operations research. I was the same actually. When I was an undergrad, my research was in chemical engineering. And it was sitting in those rooms with the big vacuum machines and running experiments all day was not a good fit for me. And I loved the data analytics piece of it, the analysis, which happens only after, months and months of research experiments. And I had a math teacher who had specialized in OR, and he was like, I just think this is a really good fit for you. And it was such a, it wasn't like it was some grand, gesture or, communication or something, but that I'm here, right, because of that, and having this conversation because of that. So I think, even small things, even just giving them a reflection, even talking about, if they ask, like, what's it like to be a professor? What's it like to work in industry? Even those like small conversations that we're having, those can be so important. So I think mentoring, formal and informal, is, we're social creatures, right? It's how we navigate through the space of our own, life development. So I think, yeah, it's essential, whether or not you want to formalize it or not, just make sure you're always being a mentor, to those people around you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I think Shanti hit the essence of it. I mean, as a more senior professor, I'm constantly offering informal advice to younger faculty members. Hopefully, I'm careful not to butt into their personal or professional lives unless they ask about it. But it happens regularly and very naturally, and there's no need to really force it. It's going to come up, and it's part of just having the experience and being able to share it.
Natural mentoring that results from just conversation. Yeah. Hungpo, how about you?
Yeah, much. I really I fully agree with the experiences that I've heard from both Jim and Shanti. Uh, I just find it, to me personally, it really helps me connected with the emerging development, new ideas, and there's no shortage. I think it goes without saying this is a big time of change. Throughout my career, I've been involved in what I thought to be a very transformational shift in the energy industry with the market liberalization, with the renewable energy integration, and with the decarbonization and so forth. And throughout this mentoring experience, I picked up from the mentees. They are excited about the meta learning and all this intelligent stuff. I think right now, I think it's that mutual sort of a learning experiences. There are a lot of stuff that are really fake or not perfect, and one has to be careful. What is really how to touch with the reality. I think I can bring some lessons. I think lessons are really, I try to say that, not really from reading books. It's really from your painful experiences. The best actually lessons is learning from others' mistakes.
I couldn't agree more. So I know we have some folks on this call who have signed up to be mentors already in the upcoming Mentor Match session. And I think we hopefully have some more who are going to be watching this recording later who are considering it. So what one piece of advice would you offer to someone who's considering becoming a mentor? And let's start with Jim this time.
Well, that's a tricky question. I actually did wonder whether the person who asked to be my mentee would be suitable or not, because I didn't know that we had enough information there. Normally, when I agree to work with a graduate student at Waterloo, I mean I've at the very least I had a couple of conversations in advance with them, and know whether our personalities and our learning styles might be compatible. But in this case, I didn't know much about the mentee who chose me, and I wasn't sure why. Actually, she did choose me because there would have been a whole bunch in the possible list of mentors. So I would like to somehow suggest, this is more for informs rather than for prospective mentors, is to maybe enable a little bit more information to be known in advance and to understand that this would be potentially a good match.
Okay, thank you. That's good feedback. Okay. Hungpo, what's your advice?
I would say to others, folks interested in this experience of mentoring others, is that you don't need to feel that you have all the answers. I think my humbling experience is really from traveling. Just the moment you thought that you had a lot of insights to share. You learn a great deal from others, more than you can imagine. And your role is to support and challenge and guide, and not to dictate. But you will be amazed that that will actually create a much more positive experiences for both the mentor and mentees.
Okay, thank you. Shantih?
Yeah, I think my advice, my best advice I can give is to just slow down and create space for them and really listen to them. I think um a- at least for me, I'm so excited to talk to them, and I'm so excited that they're there and to hear everything, about them. And they're often asking, very detailed advice on things, right? And so you want to start, giving that advice and monologuing on the topic, but really slow down and listen to them and create space for them to have that feedback, because a lot of what they're really there for in the mentoring relationship will come out, I think, in that. I think often the true reasons, don't necessarily come out, just with the sort of scripted questions or the format. I think really, really creating that space, and don't feel like you have to like rush and get through their agenda or fix anything, or, go along with some kind of schedule or something, really just, it's much better if you just let it evolve into what they need. And every person that I've had has needed very, very different things, in what they're asking and what they want to learn or what they want to talk about. So yeah, just let it happen naturally. And like Hungpo said, you do not need to think you have the answers or you have to provide these things for them. This is just really a feedback check-in, sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Let it flow and listen well. And to kind of follow up with that, how do you build trust and rapport with your mentees? I know sometimes we hear from mentees they're a little nervous about this process, and they might not be quite ready to open up. So how do you help facilitate that? And let's see, we'll start with Hungpo this time.
I just follow Shantih's point that's very natural here to create space. I think don't force. I think based on your preconception, everyone needs a little space, and recognize everyone is different. And I have different mentees, undergraduate, graduate students, and postdocs. They all have different needs. Their frame, some needs a more structured approach, some needs less structured. I think usually that the question is that how to manage silence here. I think just go naturally. But usually that I find that Jill has created a structure that I found it very useful, is to start with goals. And once you have goals, and I can structure every session informally, but always start with agenda they pick. I always start before the session that let's focus on your agenda. Basically, let them design, pick the agenda, and then start from there. And then try not to actually jump too quickly into answering questions, and try to understand where their problems is. And I think it's like all the teachers learned about this question and answers. It's all these kind of exchanges. When I think when you need to, you jump in with the answer based on your personal experience. I think it's better to be genuine, that if you actually are able to share the mistakes that you learn yourself. That is, they can learn from other things from the books. But I think if you have a good story, personal story to share with them, I think that can actually help develop this closeness and trust. So it is a kind of a genuine interchange that matters more than the specific answers. You see that the old saying is that you can give someone a fish, but it's a lot more But the wisdom is that you want to actually let them actually learn the skills to fish. That is much better than answering a specific question that often hides behind it some deeper problems or issues, challenges. So I think that the art here is really in the dynamic communication, clarity, and not try to jump too quickly.
Yeah, great advice. Shantih?
Yeah, she thought of like 3 points. And I think the first one is the same thing like Hungpo said, is, tell your own story to relate to that, because I think we all remember when we were, at that really formative, younger era, and we thought we were the only one, that felt this kind of anxiety and that wasn't sure, and that, the first presentation didn't go well. I think making sure you let them know in your own way how you relate to that, and say, oh yeah, I had that exact same thing happen. And don't worry, this is how it resolved for me. And, I know I know we can make it work out for you. So I think telling those personal anecdotes. I think the other thing is, finding, this is going to sound like kind of corny, but, try to identify those things in them that are their strengths as well. I think it's easy for these kind of mentoring conversations to sort of focus on the things that they need to do and like what they need help with, and all these gaps, what are the gaps in my resume to make me a better, candidate or something. But don't forget to focus and let them know what you're observing in them as, the great attributes too. And you'll see their faces, just kind of feel a little bit better and a little more relaxed. And that helps build the rapport. I have one that's like a great communicator, one that was just love to, get their hands in everything and love to explore everything. And, one that had a bunch of interests outside of the domain. And like, make sure you recognize and give space for like those attributes of them that are really strong, and remind them of how good and strong they are in so many areas. I think that really helps them feel better, that this isn't a critique, that we're trying to do, right? This is a supportive relationship. And I think the other thing, and this is also going to sound a little corny, but I'm sure we've all heard of the term active listening. Just it while it sounds simple on the surface, and what active listening is, make sure you're actually practicing that, because it can be harder in the back and forth when you're having a dialogue with them, if that's not your usual way of communicating. So oh, why do you feel that way? Like, what brought that up? Just continue their expression through questions, and asking them to elaborate more. I think that helps build the rapport, because it shows them that you're genuinely excited about what they do, and remembering where you left off last time. Oh, last time we were talking about this, how did that turn out? I think those are things that help them, just feel like, oh, she really did listen, and she really remembered, what we were doing last time. So I think that that can help create the comfort and build the relationship. So that was my advice.
I especially love the part about noticing what people are good at. I think that's so powerful. Jim?
Well, maybe you could rephrase the question, if you would, please.
Sure. Let me just make sure I'm saying it right. So how do you build trust? We were talking about, some mentees feel a little
Yeah.
bit uncomfortable at the beginning. How do you build that trust and rapport?
Well, I think everybody has their own personality, and it's in this regard, I don't think operating at the university would be that different than in industry. And I did work in industry before becoming a university professor. That there are employees that need a lot of encouragement. Maybe not all at one time, but 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, and then there are others that are more independent, and they need to just get a little bit of general direction, and then leave them alone to be creative. And so when you figure out what personality does this particular mentee have, and work with that, already the relationship is on a good path, I would say.
Great, thank you. Now, have any of you had to handle a situation where a mentee was really struggling or not responding to you? And How did you handle that, if that happened? Hungpo, we'll start with you.
I really cannot. I don't really have a good answer to this because I really have not run into what I view as a struggling. And as I mentioned, that my experience with the undergraduate was really I was too slow to learn afterwards that he was struggling by performing, actually appearing that to be so outstandingly. But I think to read the situation, as Shantih said, I think correctly, to detect that is extremely, I think it's extremely helpful for a mentor, for a mentor. And I think now what I learned is try to focus on the understanding of this particular root cause of this particular case, and to prevent from committing the same sort of mistakes in the future. But if they are not responsive, in general, I will just say that I will check out, and I will remember that, and I will recall it, and will try to respect that they need their own space. So without jumping the gun.
Right. I'll just add a quick comment too, that if you do, as a mentor, have this situation with your mentee, you can rely on the informed staff to help you. Jill will often intervene in situations like that, so that's another thing we can help with. Shantih or Jim, have you encountered a situation like this? No?
I think it would be very natural, the resolution would be, because if I weren't making progress in meeting with my mentee, I kind of doubt she'd be emailing me saying, when are we going to meet next week? You know, it just would, the relationship would die, I think.
Yeah.
I never had any issues with that. I think the only challenges, like real sort of challenges, have been things that were going on for them. Actually, two of mine around the same time got COVID at very pivotal times when they were trying to do very important things in their own, paths at the time. And so, you really have to change what you're sort of talking about, and really, just kind of go into support mode and just be like, hey, we can meet if you want to meet. Otherwise, we don't have to, and just let me know what you need. So, yeah, I think, yeah, just being responsive that they may be having crises as well. Those are the only real challenges I think I really ever had. So.
That sounds stressful for them, but I like support mode. That's good. So Shantih put something in the chat, just reminding attendees to please ask questions. You can feel free to use either the chat or the Q&A. Right now, I don't see any questions yet, so we'll do a couple more with our panelists, and then we can open it up. So be thinking. If you do have a question, just go ahead and write it down for us. So let's see. This was an interesting one. So do you think that there are common misconceptions about mentorship? Have you encountered any common misconceptions about mentorship since you've been doing this? Shantih?
I don't think that they had any misconceptions. I think one thing I observed, I think this was already mentioned by either Jim or Hungpo already, but they seem very nervous initially. I think, I don't necessarily think of myself this way, but I think, we're all kind of senior, members in our career. We've been doing this for decades. And so they can kind of approach you a little bit shyly. And I think that was surprising for me, because I really approach it like we're just having a conversation, and I'm just here to help you and answer any, weird random questions you might have about, the pathway here. So that was maybe the only, misconception, but I think that goes away very, very quickly as long as you're like open with them. So yeah.
Jim?
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to that. Again, the misconception could originate from either direction. So I might hope that the mentee is going to confide in me, and some people do that more easily than others. Now from the mentee's point of view, they may have an expectation that if I knew about it, I might be able to meet it. But if I don't know about it, I'm more likely going to be myself, and that has its pluses and minuses.
That's a good point. Hungpo?
I think maybe that there is in my conversation with the other colleagues and also my initial impression from the earlier mentees is that there might be actually a misperception that this is a one-way street. But in reality, the mentors learned a great deal from their mentees too. So at the beginning, the mentees may be feeling nervous, trying to. I think given that asymmetric relationship that's reflected in the certain degree the anxiety. But I think as I realized this, I tried to diffuse this kind of mentality, basically by sharing that let them know that actually mentors are nervous too. So I think this could be what I think a misconception, but I will let other people judge.
No, I think it's good that you brought that up. That's something that we as staff have encountered too, where sometimes the mentees kind of think that they have the misconception that the mentor is doing them like a huge favor and they're going way out of their way, when in reality, the mentor feels like they're getting something out of it too. So that's reassuring for people. So I do see that we have something in the Q&A. Gerald is asking, will there be both undergrads and grad students as mentees? How many mentors and how many mentees do you expect to have? So I think that's probably more a question for me. So yes, there will be both undergrads and grad students as mentees. We don't have, in Informs, we don't have a huge community of undergraduate members, but we do have some, and I expect that some will probably sign up for the program. The bulk of mentees tend to be grad students, but we don't have any actual restrictions on who can sign up as a mentee. Any of the mentors here today could in fact also register as a mentee if they wanted to, and talk to other people. So it's a very open thing. And then how many mentors and how many mentees do we expect to have? I think as of now, we have over 100 mentors, and what we do with the mentees is we try to have the numbers match. So we would close registration. What we don't want is to have a huge number of mentees more than we have mentors, because we don't want any mentees to be unmatched. So we would just close it to match the numbers. And Shantih, did you want to say something also about this?
Oh, I was just gonna say you get to pick how many you mentor. Don't think that they're gonna give you like 6 or something and you can't handle that. If you say I can only take one person, you can. They may ask you if you could take more, but that's up to you. And I've also had what Tracy said, I've also had people outside of the school system. I have two of the people that I mentored were career transition people who were already out of school. So
Great, thank you for adding that. Yes, that's an important point. You do get to choose. We're not going to make you take more than you can handle. So someone is also asking, what are the reporting requirements for the mentor of the Informs program, if any? And so I will just say there are no requirements that you submit, written anything to us. We really, I think what Jill does do is she follows up pretty regularly with the mentors, and maybe you could each speak to that. What's kind of the communication like and the expectations?
yeah, she sends an email every like month maybe or something and just asks like, are you meeting? Right. And then as long as either you or the mentee responds, she knows at least you're in communication, but there's no follow-up of like grading how it's going or anything like that. So it's just kind of like by email sort of confirmation.
Hungpo or Jim, would you like to add anything?
I think Jill has set up a good system that is the general expectation is that a mentor and mentee will meet once a month. Even though that's flexible, it can be changed or one way or the other. But the so-called reporting is really to for Jill to make sure that happens. And if I think if there's any change, I'll report back to Jill, and she actually knows really how to make the process sort of work more smoothly for both the mentors and mentees. That really is what all this is about. So there is no fixed rule per se, but to have a process as Jill has set up, I find that fairly effective.
How often are you guys meeting with your people? I'm meeting like every week, like with one of them, and then every 2 weeks was with the other two. I don't know, maybe that's a lot.
It's yeah, that's pretty intense. I meet once every 4 weeks or so with my mentee. It seems to be the right level of intensity. But I think if she had something that came up, a prospective job opportunity, I mean, we could easily meet on a day's notice if we had to.
Yeah, my experience is that follows dynamically. I think once a month probably is too few. I think generally that what I found at the mentee after we got familiar with each other, 1 or 2 sessions later, I think the frequency is really, I'm responding to the mentee's request, and has increased to once every 2 weeks. And the most recent one is, I think he requested that once a week. Yes, and I think that the reason here is that there's a it's how much that it may you have some joint sort of subject or project to discuss. So I feel that there's no general rule, but it's really the agenda, in my view, is probably best set by the mentee.
Yeah, that matches what we try to tell people, that it's really the mentee's responsibility to set that agenda. I think we recommend once a month meetings, but certainly we more frequently is even better. So, and that's up to the two of you to kind of decide on your own. So we do have another question. Would it be possible for a mentor to not have any mentee, so not being selected or contacted by a mentee? Now, I'm filling in for Jill, and Jill is the main person who handles this program. So I don't know that I'm going to answer this question 100% accurately. My understanding is that we really, really try to avoid that and match everyone. But I think there have been situations before mentors signed up and then did not end up getting matched. And usually it could be a numbers thing. Potentially we end up with more members than mentees, although we try not to have that happen. Or maybe it's just the specifics of what the mentees are looking for. If they want, sometimes they come to us and they say they really want a specific, career stage in industry or in a particular industry. And we just, we try to match it up as best we can, but I cannot promise you that you will 100% end up with a mentee. We will do our best. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any more attendee questions. We do have 5 minutes left, so let's just throw out a couple last things. So I'm going to ask kind of 2 questions together, and then you all can speak to both. How do you measure the success of a mentoring relationship? And I think that was touched on a little bit earlier. And then if you could go back to your very first time being a mentor, what would you do differently? If you could speak to maybe either or both of those. Jim, let's start with you.
Okay, well, in terms of Inform's mentorship, I think if Yuan and I continue to be colleagues that are communicating with each other after the this period is over and she's a working professional, I would say that's the measure of success I'm looking for. In my mentorship of graduate students at the university, it would be nice to say that I'm continually in contact with all the people I've supervised over the years, but people's career paths and personal lives, cause a bit of a divergence. But definitely there are people that I mentored years ago, 20, 25 years ago, and I'm still in close communication with them. And again, I choose to call that success.
It's awesome. Shantih?
I don't know. Maybe it would be, and I don't know how to do this in the best way, but I would love to have feedback from them about how they felt that it went. And they maybe, I know Informs like ask them that, but I think of course, they feel like, this is kind of like a free service, they may not give any critical feedback, but I would love to know how they experienced it and like what they had wished was different to incorporate that. I think, that would be good. It's always good to like learn and change, and every mentee mentor relationship is going to be very different. So maybe that feedback would be good in some way. So yeah, because you're kind of on an island, right? You don't know how other people are doing it, or if what we're, are you doing a great job or not? I think maybe that would be good. It may not be the right forum to just ask them directly. I think they may not be as forthcoming with that, but I would love to have known what was the best thing they got out of it, and what was, what could have been different for them. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hungpo?
Yeah, I think both Jim and Shantih have good observations. Yeah, this is a fairly subjective. It is very hard actually to have an objective measure. I find that if if the mentee gains some clarity in our interactions and gain confidence and the sense of direction, and if we both feel that the conversation is valuable, then I will consider it a success.
That's great. Thank you all so much. We are nearing the end here. We have 1 minute left, so there is just one thing I want to mention first. If you do have questions, this is for the attendees. If you have questions that you didn't get to ask or just that occur to you later, feel free to respond to Jill. She is going to send an email out in the next couple days to everybody who registered, and that'll include the recording. And just feel free to hit reply. Send her a question. She can always toss it out to the mentors and get back to you, or she'll answer it herself. So thank you again so much to our panelists for joining us and taking time out of your day today to share. We really appreciate it. We appreciate everything you do for the Mentor Match program. And thank you to the attendees as well. We appreciate you being here, and we really, really hope you participate. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
thanks, everybody.